listening to the podcast A Resonant Life, produced by The Time Is Now Productions. I am Mike Thompson, your host and Reflector-in-Chief. In this podcast, we will discuss experiences and insights from living a life devoted to uncovering the authentic self and finding fulfilling purpose from the past, the present, and the future. This podcast is a product of my life and experience, and I'll share my opinions. Opinions between people are various, and we don't all need to hold the same ones. But it is fun to hear the opinions of others as it gives us an opportunity to freshen up our own. If you enjoy and gain insight from listening, please subscribe and share. If you have questions, please email them. And as always, nothing you hear here is a proscription or a prescription. It is a discussion of life and life's internal and external experiences. So let's get to it. And welcome. This is episode 1 of A Resonant Life. We're finally sitting down and gathering our thoughts and launching this podcast. This podcast has been much on my mind and definitely an aspiration for me to do and to start. And I've hesitated, partially out of fear, nervousness, a sense of who am I to have a podcast. All those things created doubts and undermined my confidence and basically kept me from taking action. And one thing in my life, and this is part of my spiritual practice, is to, when all else fails, take action. Nothing happens unless we take action. Succeed, fail, sink, swim. The key is to do something. So this morning, I was thinking about career and how we set our goals and the things we want to do in life and achieve. And I kept cycling back to when I was young and I had ambitions and goals and things I wanted to do and pathways to get to those things, checklists to check things off, accomplishments to make, successes to put in my bag. And life threw me a lot of curves. It didn't allow me, the opportunities that presented themselves weren't the ones that I pursued. Rather, they were other opportunities that I opened my eyes to and accepted, and they took me down very different paths from what I thought I would go down. But looking back now, in my 60s, I realize that the paths I went down actually helped me to achieve the goals that I had sort of in the back of my mind. And I was a bit of an unusual youngster in that I didn't want to be a CEO, or I didn't want to have huge achievements per se. I just wanted to be a success in being of benefit. That was me. That's not everyone. But that said, I was thinking that if we define our lives in a different way than we're taught, if we define our lives in a different way than society and culture expect us to, then maybe we have an opportunity to become even better people and actors in this world, actors that create peace, actors that create benefit, actors that are creators of happiness, not just for ourselves, but for those around us, and inevitably for everyone. So it occurred to me, let me back up, a phrase from Shinso Ito, who's the head of a Buddhist order in Japan. She was asked, what her goal is, what her aim in life is. And she responded very matter-of-factly that it was nothing more than to make the person across from her happy, happier. And that was so inspiring. And it made me think, how could we put that into practice in our life? And if we did, what effect would that have on those around us, friends, family, colleagues? And what effect would that have on ourselves? And if you think about it, if your goal is to make the person across from you happier, take that in the context of family, say your partner, your spouse. If you're putting their happiness as a priority in that moment, in any moment, you're taking your own ego and needs out of the equation. And in doing so, you're saying, I don't need anything because I have enough. And if the only thing I need is for you to be happier, then I can dedicate myself to that. What happens? Usually, and I am so guilty of this too, is in a conversation with my spouse, with my partner, I'll say something, and in a way I'm fishing. I'm fishing for a response. I'm fishing for an I love you, or fishing for a smile. And this is me needing something. If I'm fishing, I'm putting bait on a hook, and I'm trying to catch something. That's not altruism, and that's not trying to make my partner happier. This is a very difficult thing, actually. It sounds kind of easy when Her Holiness Shinso Ito says it. But if you actually try and put it into practice, it is quite difficult. It requires concentration. It requires focus. It requires a real commitment to being a cause of happiness for others. And so this is the goal I'm setting for myself. I'm going to try to stop fishing in my relationship, and I'm going to try to just make my partner happy. Happy with my words, happy with my expression, and happy with my actions, whether that's taking care of the house or cooking or going somewhere together. So that's a big task ahead. How about colleagues? How about the workplace? The workplace is also a challenge because there are things we need to do in our jobs that we may or may not like to do, and there are people we need to work with and work for, people whom we may or may not like. What happens if we commit to making them happier in all of our exchanges? Will the work get done? Will there be success? Will there be profit? Will our KPIs be achieved? Good question. And one worth considering. And maybe one worth experimenting with one colleague in the workplace. I don't think setting as a goal making one colleague happier with everything we say or do, I don't think that will put at risk the success of our jobs or our companies. But it will definitely change the dynamic of the workplace. Everybody has different things going on in their workplaces, but one thing seems to be common amongst many is that they have a lot of time and energy not liking their jobs, or not liking somebody in the office, or not liking something. If you eavesdrop on conversations at bars and restaurants where colleagues are eating with each other, or spouses are discussing their day, you hear a lot of complaining about the workplace and the colleagues and the job. This indicates a certain level of dissatisfaction and unhappiness that people have. And I guess we've all grown accustomed to our work being an exercise in difficulty and endurance and getting by. But what happens if we flip that all over, turned it upside down, and instead focused on trying to make at least one colleague happier? I'm certain things would change, and I'm certain that our experiences would improve. If you're going to give so much of your time and your energy and your intelligence and your skill and your commitment and your devotion to work, to a career, to a company, then it should be rewarding. It should provide more than just a paycheck. Now, there are some people who choose to have jobs where they go in, they do their work, and then they go home and they leave all the work behind them, and that's great. And the bargain for them is a paycheck. And then they've got their life. But many people are in more of a service economy, more in corporations or workplaces where they're doing things that are a little more vague. They're not assembly line, they're not food service, things like that. And so the output, the outcomes are a little less measurable. And it becomes what they call the daily grind. The daily grind is not the best way to live one's life if one is trying to be happy and to be a cause of happiness for others. And so we're talking about introducing sort of a free radical into the equation, a grain of sand into the system. And by doing so, the system has to reorient itself to accommodate this grain of sand. That grain of sand is your commitment, is our commitment to trying to make one person happier and not needing anything from them in particular. Just dedicating ourselves to making one person happier. And like an oyster that gets sand inside of it, and that sand becomes a pearl, this analogy works. The workplace might start to become something different. At least our experience in the workplace might be different, more positive. The same for the family. The family will become more harmonious, happier, because we're taking less, or wanting less, or needing less. And instead of needing, wanting, taking, we're giving. This is something to think about. This might be something to try. And if we try, we might successfully make big changes, not only to our own lives and our own sense of happiness, but to the happiness of those around us. Family, friends, work. Our whole world could really change just because we decided to dedicate ourselves to making somebody else happier without needing anything ourselves. This is an altruistic mindset that can pay enormous dividends, that can make life something we didn't expect it to be, something much better, something much happier and more joyful. As the Dalai Lama says, all living beings, all sentient beings have something in common. And that is, they're all trying to be happy. Whatever happiness might be, whether it's just an ant gathering whatever ants gather, or bees making honey, or humans finding love and success. All sentient beings share this. We're all trying to be happy within the realm and the means and the abilities that we have. But in this pursuit of happiness, we tend to step on others. We tend to cause unhappiness for other beings. And so, if we put others first, not only do we make them happier, but we ourselves become happier too. It's an irony, it's a paradox, but it's a deep teaching shared by the Buddha. And there are many, many people who have lived before and who live now who will verify that this actually works. And so I encourage everybody to give it a whirl. I'm going to keep trying myself. And hopefully, the sun is going to shine a little brighter tomorrow. And the smiles on the faces of those in our world are going to be a little bigger and a little brighter as we go forward and act and try to make at least one person happier than they were. And so, this is going to be the end of this first episode of the Resonant Life podcast. I would love to hear your feedback. I would love to hear any suggestions you might have about where to go, what to do, what to talk about. In the meantime, I'm going to continue to wing it and do my best and to share some thoughts and ideas, some experiences, and some different ways of looking at living and experiencing life that will hopefully help some people to become a bit happier. If we ourselves are happier, the world becomes happier. If the world becomes happier, certainly, it becomes more peaceful. And today, that seems more important than ever, critical. With war, with political turmoil, with everybody piled on one side or the other and very little communication going on in the middle, between the sides. Certainly, finding some peace and being a cause of peace is a worthwhile endeavor for all of us. So thank you for listening, and I hope that you'll listen again and share this podcast with others, and let's build a little army of happiness and happiness makers.